We have eccentric loading. Basically, you're loading your spine with like external load versus like an isometric load. So you can contract harder in your pales and rails, or we can build strength by loading this heavier. So you have two options for progression. Now that you're feeling it, again, when we're leaning over with the weight, no hip flexion, right? I don't want to see your hips going back. I just want the spine flexing until we feel the very ends where our tailbone's pulling apart. The same sensation we got when we were stretching for the pales and rails. And you're trying to stay in flexion as we come up. If you feel more hamstring than spine, chances are you're hinging at your hip and you're not just flexing at the spine. So the glutes are relaxed. If you want to tighten them as you come down, that might help you. But I don't want to see your butt doing this and going into anterior pelvic tilt. If we were to have you do your Jefferson curl like this, you're going to find that the load distribution creates a lot more of a stretch and flexion. I found that I get a much better stimulus from this and I'm a lot weaker. So we're going to actually try this variation first, and you're just going to go until you feel like you can't handle it any deeper, and then come back up. Okay, we're not adding any other weight besides this bar. Show me what you got. Start with the neck. You're flexing cervical spine, and just lean over as you typically would. And I think the weight being on your elbows makes it easier to bias spine over hip. So keep going with it. We flex the cervical spine. We feel stretching going on our thoracic. As you get to your lumbar, play around with the elbows being a little bit further away from you. And you can feel that stretching, hopefully down to your tailbone. Once you find that end range, stay in flexion and slowly stand back up. You're gonna definitely wanna watch your hands though when you stand up all the way. I generally have my fists together, my hands touching, so that when you stand all the way up, you're a little bit more stable. Did you feel a difference in how that stretch feels versus when you do like a standard Jefferson, holding the weight in front of you? So for the people watching the video, we see his hips aren't going back at all. And this is the only thing that is actually moving on him. If we see his hips shifting back at all, he's actually flexing at the hip and not flexing at the spine. And if you have a hard time coordinating the separation between those two, then that's where our other internal training would develop that awareness to be able to separate what tissue is actually doing the work and not allowing that compensation to set in. Do you like it more holding it like this, or do you like the Zerker more?
I actually get a ton more from holding it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, hold it that way, I don't care. That's where that goes to show you that, like,
Way
you know,
thoracic and cervical too.
holding it like this?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You didn't get more lumbar flexion holding it as a Zerker?
Lumbar was the same, but more thoracic and...
Okay, whatever floats your boat.
Whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, whatever works at the end of the day. You know, I know people that only like dumbbells doing this too. So whatever works in terms of load distribution, hand placement, at the end of the day, that's what I care about. I don't really care about the specific tool or the setup you're using. Good. We're able to find a stretch through there. Push that up into me more. And then stay in flexion as you come back up. There you go. There you go. And then extend. So whatever variation you like, do, you know, load's relative. You'd probably be heavier or be able to go heavier holding it like this. But, you know, if you got a better stimulus doing the other one, then do whatever works for you.
I feel like here...
Easier to initiate it?
You can initiate by rounding the shoulders forward.
That works. When you're there, it doesn't feel like it pulls you in initially.
You have to intentionally, right here.
You're like following the weight.
You kind of just let the weight take your shoulders, take your arms, because you can go way further out too.
That's one reason people like dumbbells too, is the load would be to their sides as opposed to their front. So when you're doing this, are you able to do it with your stomach relaxed? Because doing this with the stomach relaxed versus the stomach being tense, whereas if I'm punching you, it's two different exercises, or it's the same exercise with two different intents. Let's phrase it that way. So for you, I know you can lean over with your stomach tight. Are you able to relax your stomach in that level of spine flexion that you're in? Is that manageable for you? Breathe into that. Now, can you come back up, but maintain a relaxed stomach? Because if we tighten our stomach too much, it's going to limit how well this can lengthen. So try to start coming up and keep your stomach as lax as you can. And if you can't, it is what it is. And we just do the best we can and try to develop that skill. How did that feel?
Holy fuck.
Was that a much better stimulus than what you're used to?
That's the limit of the weight I can do with...
It's that heavy?
Yeah, without tensing my stomach.
Okay, take a second. We can do it again. Take a second, that's fine.
It's hard to disassociate.
It's very hard for you. Well, I mean, think about it. If your spine doesn't want to flex, your stomach will tighten your stomach to protect it. It's that simple. Kind of like how some people, their hamstring or their hip doesn't want to flex, their pelvis doesn't want to anteriorly tilt, and their hamstrings get tight as a result of that. You just have a hard time not relaxing your stomach, right? It's just a different compensation. It's just the natural compensation because of your limitation. So your homework isn't loading this heavier. It's not doing more reps. It's better internal engagement. And then we progressive overload through harder isometrics, right? Pales and rails, or more volume, more potent volume, right? Like you just said, that was as heavy as you could go with your stomach relaxed.
Yeah.
If you can only do 3 or 4 reps, 5 reps, whatever, do a couple sets. That's your volume. If you'd rather go lighter and do more reps, but you can maintain the relaxed stomach, you know, it's just kind of like how some people like training a barbell squat heavier versus lighter. There's preferences. But what I care about for you is the disassociation. And if the heavier load like this allows disassociation,
it's neuromuscular.
Yeah. And if you like the lighter weight for the disassociation, fine, doesn't matter. Yeah, so if someone gets pain doing that, we would just have them start with body weight. Right, and work their way into it. If they can go here without pain, fine. Then ease in a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. Because you had no pain, it's trainable, so I'm okay with you loading it. Do you have questions on that? At some point, let's have you get comfortable doing this. And then we're gonna add a rotational component to it where you're doing Jefferson curls twisting, coming back up, twisting. But let's get you better at that, and then another time we can go over that.